I saw this. I don't know if it was like an L or a W or anything, but this clip's been floating around a little bit and people have been using it to say that Cenk has been just got bodied on Israel and Palestine. So let's just take a look here super quick. Let's give it the lookie. Give it a small little lookie. Let's see.
But anyway, let me just get on to it. You say, first of all, I don't care about the death of Palestinian children. Yes, I do care. I care very deeply about it. But I also know that the responsibility for their deaths lies on Hamas, which has misgoverned their society for the last 16 years and now has been leading the country into being in a war with Israel.
Okay, but like being in a war and all those kids dying, it wasn't Hamas that bombed them. Like, yeah, they put them in the position that they're going to that they're in the grounds of like a war that was probably going to be waged after something like that, or in some way, some bombardment or something, right? But like this basically clears Israel of not being able to do any wrongdoing. So Israel can like do whatever they want. At this point, without type of logic, Israel could just drop a nuke on Gaza and then they could just be like, well, I mean, October 7th was pretty bad. Like, okay, well, it doesn't mean you could just do whatever you want, right?
So yes, it's on Hamas this. As for seeing wars, by the way, I just mentioned about seeing wars because as far as I can see, you're very ill-travelled as well as rather ill-lettered and ill-spoken. And I mention that I cover wars and go to wars because I happen to think myself that it's worth seeing things with your own eyes, including things that you don't particularly like, but you report the truth. I don't know if you ever even leave your own bedroom. And I can tell already that you don't because you've already said something that demonstrates you know nothing about this conflict. You have just demonstrated it in the following terms. You said that this is why we need to push for a two-state solution and give legitimacy to the Palestinian Authority. I'll tell you something you don't know because I guess you spent no time in the West Bank, have you? I'll tell you something you probably don't know. The Palestinian Authority, Fatah, celebrated the 7th of October massacres. I'll give you another fact which demonstrates you know nothing about this and clearly haven't ever visited any Palestinians in the West Bank as I have.
Let's see. Palestinian Authority praises attacks. Do we? Where is that? Because they're talking about the one in the West Bank, right? Okay, let's see. I see Hezbollah praising the attacks on the 7th. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas on October 12th condemned violence against Israel and Palestinian civilians alike. I mean, I don't know. This one's called the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Condemned the violence against Israelis and Palestinians. We reject the practices of killing civilians or abusing them on both sides, he said during a meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah in Amman, a day before he met with Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and in the Jordanian capital. This statement comes 6 days after the PA's failure to condemn Hamas's atrocities against Israeli civilians on October 7th. Hamas besieged. Abbas stressed at a PA emergency meeting that the Palestinians had the right to defend themselves. On October 9th, Abbas' ruling party, Fatah, released a statement praising the Hamas attacks, calling on Palestinians to create all the conflict zones. Here, let's see. Calling on all Palestinians to escalate all the conflict zones. Let's see. This seems to be the statement. Fatah's Central Committee praised the Palestinian fighters involved in confronting the occupation's crimes and aggression and attacking the enemy in the West Bank, Gaza, and elsewhere. In a statement, the committee called on the Palestinian public to answer the call and confront Israel and escalate the situation on the ground in every conflict area throughout the homeland in order to aid Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. To the masses, our people and the custodians of truth, honorable greetings. Martyrs who performed their duty in sacrificing their souls on the path of freedom. Thanks to the steadfast and sacrifices committed to our lands. Commitment to our land, Jerusalem. Your rights. You shortened the life of this despicable occupation. We congratulate the forces of heroism that confront the occupation crimes and aggression, attacking the enemy and not fleeing, and defending the people in every village, refugee camp, and city in the Palestinian West Bank and the proud Gaza Strip. Our people in the arenas of conflict, steadfastness, and the freedom lovers throughout the world right now, this very moment, as a Palestinian people waging an open conflict against the occupation, which has used its racist and bloodthirsty and colonial mentality along with its ethnic cleansing and defilement of the holy sites to lead the region to an explosion it would have been warning about for a long time. Enlighten the criminal war that has been declared against our people and all geographical borders of our homeland is our obligation and the obligation of Arab countries to our people in the world to rally the real consciousness, fashion, possibility of national unity, struggle on the ground with all means possible to us in order to wage this campaign in a united fashion. The public must answer the calls and confront and stand up to the aggression, the crimes of the Gaza, crimes in Gaza and the West Bank, escalate conflict zones with the occupier throughout the homeland, Palestine, in order to defend people. Okay. And when did this one come out? This is the 9th, so this was like 2 days later? Or this 2 days later when this was published. Oh no, yeah. 2 days when it came out. Okay. So on the 12th, they condemned attacks against Israelis, and on the 9th, they were like, going after Israel isn't bad. Okay.
If there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, the reason why there isn't one is because if there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, Hamas would win. So your idea of a two-state solution,
I'm afraid my thing is, I've seen a really weird back and forth with this type of stuff. So like a lot of these types of people will try to, wash their hands of like both the West Bank and Gaza and be like, well, as you see, it's okay to really dislike Hamas and want to exterminate them at all costs, because even people in Gaza and the West Bank don't even like Hamas and scorn them for stopping the ceasefire that was more or less in place before October 7th, right? And October 6th. And until like it was originally put in place, right? Well, that specific one was originally put in place. But then they go on to be like, oh, well, it's okay to like do all of this bombing because, and there's a reason why there's no elections is because everybody there would love Hamas and they think Hamas is great and they would love to vote for Hamas if they had the opportunity to. Like, I don't think that there hasn't been an election because they love Hamas. I think there hasn't been an election for many other reasons than their love of Hamas. Oh, it's just weird. It's just weird, contradictory stuff, like constantly between these types of people posting this type of stuff.
So out of date, and you really should leave your bedroom, because in this region, nobody thinks that there is a two-state solution on the table because there is not a viable negotiating partner. But I just want to make one other main point.
Wait, that's okay. Here's the thing. Listen. Yeah, it's true. A two-state solution is not in the cards right now. And yeah, like there isn't like a viable negotiating partner, but he said, let's make it. That's not against the argument of making a two-state solution. Just because nobody wants to argue for one right now, or there's nobody in like a good negotiating place, because Netanyahu wants to like blow up every Palestinian and turn them into red mist, and Hamas wants to do the same to to Israelis. That doesn't mean that like a two-state solution still isn't the best solution that should be advocated for. Why would you come back against this? Simply because it's not possible right now does not mean it's not possible sometime in the future with better negotiating partners. Like, what are you talking about?
On and on tonight, throwing accusations out against the Jewish state, against me. It's the sort of thing you do. I know you're a sort of online pugilist and think you can run for office, and good luck with that. But I'd just like to point out that you only really get animated if the Jews are involved. And I can tell that for the following reason.
What? Okay. Oh, it's the classic, well, you dislike Israel, you must be super anti-Semitic. No, listen, I'm not like some Cenk gagger. I don't like Cenk very much, honestly. I don't really have any reasons to really like him that much. But he's like always, he's animated about literally everything. But I don't know, let's see this ironclad argument here.
I mean, your surname's Uygur, isn't it? 1 million Uyghur Muslims in China have been put in concentration camps in the last decade. And people of your ilk never really care about that, do you? Because it's not the Jews doing it. It's the Chinese Communist Party.
What? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. I see it. He's just one of these guys who's like, people on the left are all anti-Semitic. They hate all Jews and they only care about hating America and hating Jews. Okay. I see it. I perceive it. Okay. Like the idea that people on the left don't care about the Uyghur Muslims is genuinely insane, but okay.
At the moment, 1 million 1 million people who are in Pakistan at the moment, who are your fellow Muslims and who happen to be Afghan, and I don't think you care about them, do you? 1 million Afghans are currently being forcibly deported from Pakistan to Afghanistan. You don't care about that. You're not riled up about that. You're not riled up about what the Janjaweed are currently doing in Sudan, where thousands and thousands of people are being attacked by the Islamist militia there. You don't care about any of that.
Don't care about. I mean, listen. Well, I don't know. It's just like, well, we can bomb as many children as we want. We can destroy as many human lives as we want. And if you come out against it, then you're a bad person, because I haven't seen you say literally the exact same thing about every conflict to ever happen in the entire world. Ever. Like, okay. You can't talk about literally everything, bro. What a scumfuck. Yeah, I don't know. These are all like really terrible arguments, but it has like 42,000 likes. I kind of want to see this now. I don't know how well Cenk did on this, because this is like Piers Morgan. Let's see. This is like 2 days ago. It's only 32 minutes. Let's give it a look. Perfectly
Today
safe,
a sea of other stories have come out in the last few days, which have been concerning, I think. For anyone who, like me, believes that Israel has not just a moral duty to defend itself, but has a fundamental right to do so after what happened on October the 7th. And I've said that clearly from the start. It's always been, for me, the issue of proportionality. And it seems that in the last few days, there have been a number of incidents which really question whether Israel is being precise, as it says it is, or indiscriminate. And I would cite the killing of the 3 hostages. I would cite the killing of the 2 women outside the Catholic Church. I would cite the President of the United States saying that they're using indiscriminate bombing, and so on.
I think,
do you, Douglas?
Didn't Israel's like commands literally come out to say that precision isn't their number one priority? Like, making sure they don't kill civilians is literally stated goal, is not their number one priority. They couldn't care less, honestly. If they kill or don't kill civilians, their number one thing is to try to wipe out Hamas, which is not a viable goal. It's not something that you can actually do. But that's their stated number one goal. So like, Biden said it, the UN said it, like Gaza says it, Hamas says it, Israel says it, but like people who support Israel don't want to admit that Israel is just bombing places just because they can, honestly. And couldn't care less about the precision and care mostly about the damage that they could do within the time that they have.
Notwithstanding your full throttle support of Israel, does anything that's been happening make you think Israel needs to execute this war differently?
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think that most of the people who think they know how to execute this war have never executed a war. Indeed, most people who think they know how the IDF should be running this conflict have never been near a conflict. I'm in Israel tonight. I was in Gaza again yesterday. And the examples that you give, by the way, Piers, I don't see why they show any need to prosecute the war itself differently. I mean, just to take one of them, the first example you give, the absolutely tragic, awful shooting of these 3 hostages as they were coming out. But, you know, some of the spin that's been put on that in the world, apart from the glee, of course, that Israel's enemies can't help expressing, some of the spin on that is almost as if it shows the IDF is sort of so brutal that it even kills Hamas hostages who are Israeli. I just think this is another example of international media and others just having this astounding lack of empathy for the Israeli people. Can you imagine what it was like for those soldiers who were in Gaza, knowing that at any point there are snipers, there are booby traps everywhere, people coming out of tunnels that they've built at British and American taxpayer expenses and attacking them? Can you imagine what it was like for the soldiers who, in that terrible moment, made the life-changing mistake of shooting 3 people who turned out to be Hamas hostages?
But okay, I don't care. I don't care how soldiers feel about killing civilians. Well, listen, you get mad at Israel for just shooting at anything that moves when they're in Gaza. Like, listen, which one is it then? Is every single soldier in, like Israeli soldier in Gaza, like a trigger happy delinquent who will shoot anything that moves because they're too scared of like anything that could possibly happen? So civilian lives are just on the back burner to their own, or are they like a precise, accurate, responsible military trying to defend their home country? Which one is it? Which one? You can't have both. What he wants to do is have both. Make you completely change topic from, well, if they can shoot their own civilians, okay? Their own hostages who were holding white flags, just so you know. And there were also a group of women hostages who were also shot, who were wearing burqas, hijabs, who were trying to be saved. One of the group holding white flags and like, we give up, okay? And they still just blasted them. And we've been seeing video after video after video from people who just talk about it, from people who are on the ground, from reporters, that like Israel's military is just shooting anyone and everyone without much care for what could possibly happen. And then we get more proof of that. And then this guy goes, well, that's not, I can't believe everybody's saying that that's what's happening, when we have very clear proof of it happening. And then he goes on to a rant about how, well, the soldiers are really scared, so they have to shoot everybody and anybody. And you can't tell Israel to stop killing as many civilians because, well, you've never waged a war, have you? How can you, like, I don't know, what if something happened to this guy's house's electricity, and so he hires an electrician, and he comes home to his house on fire, and then he goes, why did you set my house on fire? And the electrician goes, like, turns to him and goes, huh. Well, have you been to an electrician trade school? How do you fix a circuit breaker, okay? And then you can come tell me about whether or not the house should be set on fire by the time you come back. Like, shut up, you dumb bitch. You fucking buffoon. Okay, sure.
Why would they shoot anyone who was shirtless and waving an SOS flag? I mean, why would whoever they were, whether they were Israeli hostages or whether they thought they were Palestinians, why would anyone shoot anyone who comes out like that? That's my point.
That'll be a matter for the inquiry.
Listen, I can never listen. He can't make any big statements on bad things Israel does, because Israel can't really do any wrong. And if they do any wrong, then it's the Palestinians' fault for just like being alive and being able to be shot.
It's hardly as if they'd have wanted to have done that.
No, I think they
what
wanted
this demonstrates is, in this incredibly close conflict in a heavily built-up area, with people coming out from all sides, firing, shooting, detonating, people make mistakes. Of course they do.
That's
just a human reality of war, horrible as it is. I don't think it shows in any way that Israel is prosecuting this war wrongly. As for the main issue of the war is to destroy Hamas. No Israeli of left or right or center believes anymore after October the 7th that they can live beside Hamas. Hamas has been given the statelet of Gaza. It was given it in 2006, voted in, then killed their fellow Palestinians in a coup, killed Fatah rivals, and they've run the Gaza for almost 18 years now. And they've produced a new generation of people whose main aim in life, it seems, according to their textbooks and their classes, is to regard Jews as enemies who should be killed. This is just an unbelievable waste, a waste of life on every side. But apart from anything else, a waste of those Palestinian lives, of children who grew up under Hamas's rule, if you can call it that, who have been indoctrinated into becoming sociopaths by a psychopathic terror organization, Hamas.
Okay, so Israel has absolutely no culpability for doing anything. They only can do right. And if there's wrong, then it's just the Palestinians' fault for dying. Israel wouldn't really be killing civilians if civilians were killable. You ever think about that? How easily it is for Palestinian children to die? Like, they can't even survive one Hellfire missile to the dome. And then they have the gall to complain about dying so much? Like, have you ever thought about getting your bread up, bro? Have you ever thought about getting your bread up? Ever think about that? I don't know. Here's the thing, that even Israel's government claims that their treatment of Palestinians in the West Bank, Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza, has led to difficulties when it comes to being able to find peace. But I don't know. Just keep in mind when you see this type of stuff, Israel will say that they did something that's bad. Gaza, Hamas, the UN, independent war researchers, reporters, news outlets, and the world at general will say Israel has done something bad, but like Israeli defenders will go against all of that to claim that they haven't done anything wrong.
You've been listening to that. Is there anything that Douglas said that you agree with?
No, nothing.
Not even about the way Hamas has presided over Gaza in the last 18 years?
Yeah. So that's a weapon of mass distraction. It's Israel doing genocide on the Palestinians right now. And there's IDF soldiers singing
I would personally
in video that
say that I agree that Hamas runs Gaza poorly because they're a dictatorship and they're not even allowed to actually vote for, not even actually allowed to vote. So I would say that, yeah, but like I don't know, it's a pretty low bar.
That the IDF has confirmed about how they're going to wipe out the seed of Amalek. That is a verse in the old Hebrew Bible that talks about exterminating Amalek. So they're talking about genocide against Palestinians. Benjamin Netanyahu has also talked about wiping out Amalek. These are open calls for genocide. What I find stunning, Douglas mentioned stunning lack of empathy. There's 20,000 dead people in Palestine right now in Gaza. Over 8,000 of them are children. When 36 Israeli children were killed by Hamas, the world cried out, and I was brokenhearted over it. 36 poor kids dead in Israel. Now there's over 8,000 dead kids in Gaza. You want to talk about a stunning lack of empathy. 6,400 women slaughtered in Gaza. You want to talk about terrorism? They're dropping unguided bombs, 2,000-pound bombs.
This was a good thread of some quotes. Some of these I've seen before. We will take, from Benjamin Netanyahu, we will take a mighty vengeance for this black day. We will take revenge for all the young people who lost their lives. We will target all of Hamas positions. We will turn Gaza into a deserted island. To the citizens of Gaza, I say, you must leave now. We will target each and every corner of the strip. One thing. Ben Gvir in Netanyahu's party. When we say that Hamas must be annihilated, we mean leaders, supporters, and even those who distribute sweets. They are all terrorists. Major General Ghassan Alian. Human animals must be treated as such. There will be no electricity, no water in Gaza. There will only be destruction. You wanted hell, you will get hell. Former Minister of Public Diplomacy and a member of the Knesset. Erase all of Gaza from the face of the earth. That the Gazan monsters will fly to the southern fence and try to enter Egyptian territory, or they will die and their death will be evil. All right. And also member of the Knesset as well. Once again, right now, one goal, Nakba. And this is like the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. A Nakba that will overshadow the Nakba of 1984, the original ethnic cleansing of Palestinians and Arabs from the area when Israel was founded. Avi Dichter, Minister for Agriculture and the former head of the intelligence services. We are now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba. We are fighting against human animals. We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water. Everything will be closed. Israeli Justice Minister. Behind every terrorist is a dozen men and women without whom he couldn't engage in terrorism. They are all enemy combatants and their blood shall be there on their heads. They should go as they should the physical homes in which they raise the snakes. Otherwise, more little snakes will be raised there. All right. There are no innocent civilians in Gaza. It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. So yeah, like, I don't know, like these claims that Cenk's making seems pretty backed up by things that Israel personally says about the matter.
Empathy towards Palestinian lives is disgusting. But I want to be clear, it is not shared by all Israelis. The dad of one of the hostages who was killed went on Israeli television and said, stop killing them. And he didn't mean the hostages. He meant the Palestinians.
All right, but Jake, let me just jump in. But before I go back to Douglas' response to this.
Let me reply to that, Piers.
Yeah, I will let you reply to that. On this issue of genocide, do you accept, though, that Hamas's whole raison d'etre when it comes to Israel is genocide? They want to eradicate Israel and kill as many Jews as they can. I mean, they've made no secret of this.
Yeah, so
I don't think you should, if you're arguing for this, I don't think that you should ever really defend Hamas very much. I think you should defend like the factual matters of the things that they've said specifically. Like recently that you're going to see people say that Hamas denied a ceasefire, right? There's some people in line, some people who specifically, people who love Biden and who are like want to advocate for every single thing Biden has ever done wrong and things that he's ever done. Like they believe that he's never done anything wrong or something, or people who are just pretty super duper pro-Israel. Or super duper anti-leftist. All these types of people have the same arguments. And it is basically that people, lefties or like people in the West who are sympathetic to Palestinians, they just like don't care about Israel and they want them dead, they're just like Nazis too, like global Nazis. Like if you were close enough to Israel, they'd bomb your house too, honestly. And people like this guy would be for that as well. Yeah, but they're going to say things like, what they're going to say recently is that, an argument that you're going to be hearing here in a little bit is that Hamas is the one that denied a ceasefire, basically. That's the argument that's going on right now. What actually happened is that Israel offered a 7-day ceasefire in exchange for 40 hostages. Hamas said no. The reason why is because Hamas said that they're not going to be releasing any more hostages until there's a full ceasefire. And so you're going to be seeing a lot of these like pro-Biden people, like pro-Biden and anti-lefty people say things like, oh, they're advocating for something that like Hamas doesn't even want, because Hamas keeps saying that that they're going to be rejecting all the ceasefires, when in all actuality, if you think about it for just a moment in time, Israel and the US have been stalwartly against a ceasefire since the beginning of the war. We know this. In the UN, they've had like talks in the UN, Israel's like delegation literally came in with like Stars of David to prove how much they hate the idea of a ceasefire and think that they're like that it's like not, it's like Auschwitz 2 Electric Boogaloo when you say that Israel should stop bombing people, right? And if we all agree with that, how in the world are you going to sit here and try to convince somebody that, or do you genuinely believe that Israel then changed their mind in the last like 10 minutes to say that they actually wanted to ceasefire? So which one is it? Are you like against the idea of a ceasefire and you're on Israel's side? Or do you agree with the ceasefire and you're also on Israel's side because that's exactly what they've been advocating for, even though they've said clearly that they don't want a ceasefire at all? Like which one? It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's not a ceasefire, it was a truce. They had like a couple days truce going on, not an actual ceasefire.
This is really important. So I have no sympathy for Hamas. So I'm not interested in defending Hamas. I think that's nothing but a distraction, because right now they're not fighting Hamas. They're just killing Palestinian
civilians. Well, they're
civilians.
also killing Hamas terrorists. They are. I mean, they're killing thousands of them.
Barely.
Actually,
no, wait a minute.
Know the number of. Here, let's see. Do we have any number of how many Hamas militants have died? According to accounts of freed Israeli hostages, add pressure to save those still in captivity. At the last count, Israel's military says it has killed 7,000 Hamas fighters. It remains unclear, however, whether that figure includes an estimated 1,000 militants Israel says that were killed inside its border during October 7th. And this was 2 days ago. Wait, if this is true, then the Palestinian death toll in Gaza has passed 20,000, including 8,000 children. And Israel says that they've killed 7,000 Hamas fighters. So if we just like believe these numbers, because Israel has the same numbers of people that they killed, that means that they've killed more children than Hamas fighters. They've killed more children than Hamas. If like Israel's numbers are to be, believed here. And I've been reading some stuff that Israel's numbers on like how many Hamas fighters they've killed and also how many of their fighters have died when like invading Gaza have been grossly both like over and under represented respectively. 7 children for one Hamas fighter. I guess that's the toll that this guy thinks that is worthy to take. Listen, this blowing up. Okay, well, what if it was like Israel had to throw 7 children into a volcano to kill one Hamas fighter, and that's how they were waging the war? Do you think that he would think that Israel should change its tactics? What do you guys think? Not even like the messiness of like trying to attack a building that has children in it that also has like Hamas fighters in it, okay? Just straight up like, if you send IDF to kill 7 children and one Hamas fighter will simply just perish because of that. And Israel, that's how Israel was conducting the war. Do you think that he would change his opinion on how the war was conducted? Because if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't believe so. I think he would be like, not only is that like a good way to do the war, it'd be better than what Israel's doing now because there would be technically less damage.
Barely. But let's go to your main point, okay? So the main point is, well, Hamas threatens X, Y, and Z and has killed 1,200 people on October 7th. So that is why we have to all worry about what Hamas might
Well,
do.
I don't think it's simple as that.
Hold on.
Let
Let
me
me finish the point.
it's
Let
something
me
they've
finish
actually
the
done.
point. Let me finish the
no,
point.
not Mr. Yapperton.
What they might do if they had infinite power, the kind of power that Israel has. Meanwhile, Israel is actually doing the genocide, is actually preventing a Palestinian state and saying you are not allowed to exist. And if you dare try to exist, we'll kill
Okay, let me go to
20,000
Douglas.
of your children and women.
All right, Douglas, respond to that.
Several things. First of all, anyone who uses the term genocide in this context simply doesn't know what they're talking about, or is a malevolent actor. I don't know if Mr. Uyghur's traveled at all in his life, how far he's traveled, how many conflicts he's seen, but I'd have guessed none. And you clearly know nothing about this particular conflict, and you've obviously seen none of it. The genocide that you describe is such a smear and a libel against the Jewish state. If Israel wanted to commit genocide, I'm sure it could, but it doesn't. It doesn't remotely want to. And people like you and other pro-Palestinian propagandists
I don't believe
this
is true. I think it's very clear that I think there's it's very clear that there's at least a good argument that that's what Israel is doing. Even if you like disagree or something, that's fine. I think you can disagree on something like that. You can't disagree on the idea that there's a good argument for that. Like, that's just kind of being a little bit silly, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, there's very clear arguments from what Israel specifically has said about the war, their aims of the war, their goals in this war, and from like top officials down to like your average person about what they want to do here. And it's very clear that a lot of those things are depicted as ethnic cleansing at the very minimum. Very minimum.
years claiming that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. By the way, the weirdest thing about this claim is that the population, like you and other pro-Palestinian propagandists, have spent years claiming that Israel is committing genocide in the Gaza. By the way, the weirdest thing about this claim is that the population of the Gaza has grown by 1 million in the last 15 or so years. So if Israel was trying to carry out a genocide, it's either the worst perpetrator of genocide ever or uniquely poor at performing that task.
This is just like, okay. It still kind of blows my mind that somebody who lives in Israel would ever make a claim like this. I genuinely, maybe when I was younger, I thought that like education in Israel about like the ins and outs and the specific nature of genocide would be higher than this. But honestly, I grew up and then I realized that Israel's education system, government has every reason to lie to their audience, completely lying to their audience about the nature of genocide to be able to use it for more nefarious aims. So, I mean, like, the idea that there's more people now than there was previously means that the genocide isn't happening is just completely stupid. Okay, so this idea that every single genocide has to be one that has depleted the population to the point where they've like 30%. Like what then is a successful genocide? It's like attempted. I don't know. It's like that Simpsons bit where like, what did they try to give me for attempted murder? I didn't do anything wrong. How do you put me in jail for attempting to do something? I didn't even do it. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like attempting to commit genocide and doing things that are very specifically like. Even to the UN, I don't know, maybe like the UN is seen as like something evil and anti-Semitic in Israel or something, but like the idea that like you have to complete the genocide for it to actually be genocide is just it's insane. They think genocide is what happened in the last Airbender when there's literally 0 Airbenders alive. I guess so. I thought their ideas of, originally I thought their ideas of genocide would be way more reasonable, smart than that.
None of the stats support that ridiculous claim. It's such a weird smear and a libel of Israel. Secondly, of course, you've just rattled off Hamas figures, as everyone
said genocide is bad, and he said weird individual. Okay. You're kind.
Thirdly, you said that the world cried. Thirdly, of course, you've just rattled off Hamas figures, as everyone of your kind always does.
Wait a second.
Thirdly,
stop.
You said,
can we stop with the Hamas figures thing? It's such a bad argument. Here's the thing, okay? I'm skeptical of things that Hamas just says. You should also be, I think personally, equally skeptical with things that Israel claims. All right. The thing is, here's the thing. Okay. This guy can't make this argument and also support Israel because Israel's numbers are pretty consistent with Hamas's numbers. Like, I thought that this may have been like a decent point back in the day, but Israel's own metrics line up pretty close to what Hamas has been putting out. So either they're both telling the truth or they're both lying. And I don't know, maybe he thinks that anybody who agrees with Hamas is evil, so maybe even the state of Israel is evil too, but like in a good way. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even know. But these are all just like garbage talking points that have been like, I thought that he would have something. I thought with how many likes that the original clip had, I thought that he would have better points than this. This is genuinely shocking.
That the world cried, a world cried, you said. You said that the people like you who cover for the Palestinian extremists. Thirdly, you said that the world cried out for the 36 Israeli dead children. No, they didn't. And you know that very well.
No, they absolutely
You know that
did.
very well. If you put up a poster to a missing dog in any Western city, that poster stays up. In city after city in America, posters of abducted Jewish children, including a 10-month-old baby, were put up and were ripped down by people who have been indoctrinated into hate of Jews. Nobody would rip down the poster of a missing dog, but from Dublin to Berkeley, they ripped down posters of abducted Jewish children. So no, I don't think there was very much.
Let's see if Piers is going to hit on this one.
Let me make
Okay,
two
so
other
I'll
very
do
quick
it.
points.
CC won't be able to at the moment. Here's the thing: if for just for a second, let's just have this conversation for a moment. Why would that happen? Is it their indoctrination to hate Jews? Is everybody who doesn't like Israel somebody who just simply hates Jews, even Jews who do? Is that factual, or just like yeah? But here's something crazy. Okay, so why are those posters up? That's just my question. Why are those posters up? For what reason? It's super interesting because I don't want to get on the whole like Israelis are white so they're bad, right? But I don't think that argument makes much sense. But if we're gonna take this for a moment, I want to compare it to the like White Lives Matter thing that was going on during the 2020 BLM protests. Like people will put up Black Lives Matter signs. Okay, cool, interesting. Reason: systemic racism. We'll just leave it at that for now. And then people saw that and they were like, I got an idea. Let's put up White Lives Matter signs. And then they would have the same argument with that like, oh, they were tearing down White Lives Matter signs. That means they hate white people and their lives and they want to kill them, which obviously is completely stupid. The reason that the White Lives Matter signs were going up was not because they love white people in their lives. It's a specific point to counter Black Lives Matter. Like those hostage pictures were going up not because they cared about the hostages. Like I'm not going to be able to find one of the hostages in like, you're not going to be able to find one of the hostages in like Dublin. Okay, they're not going to be there. Specifically put up as a political point to justify what Israel is doing. When you go, Israel should be more calm about the war, somebody would go, but look at the hostages. When you go, Israel should not kill as many children, they go, well, think of the hostages. That's the point that's going on here. And then even if that's the case, it still is like anti-hostages, because we've even at the beginning of this discussion, it's been talked about how Israel would just blast anybody, even their own hostages, if they get the opportunity to. Help the children in a different continent by doing what? Never saying anything bad about Israel ever. Okay. And honestly, if I'm gonna be honest with you, if you put up a missing dog poster for a dog in like Saskatchewan in like Iraq, that poster is probably gonna get removed. So I don't know what this point is.
Firstly, you said what Hamas might do, as if it was some kind of hypothetical. Hamas showed what they do, what they want to do. It showed it on October the 7th, and its leadership, as I'm sure you very well know, said that they would like to repeat that again and again until they have got rid of every Jew. So, I don't know. I would trust Hamas's word on that rather than your interpretation of what you think they mean when they say that, and your generous interpretation of what you think that means. And finally, as for preventing a Palestinian state, it is nonsense that the Israelis have prevented a Palestinian state. They gave the Gazans a Palestinian state in 2005. They gave them a Palestinian state in 2005 when every Jewish person was ripped from their homes in the Gaza by IDF soldiers. And the Palestinian people were given a state. And what did they do?
It wasn't a state. What are you talking about? Huh? Okay. All right. By them, they mean Egypt. Yeah. What? He's making his own fan fiction live on air. That's crazy. By state, they mean concentration camp. They got their own state. They have their own state. We just control their shore and their movement and their water and their food, and they can't go anywhere, and we'll blow them up if they try to leave. Anyways, they have their own state. What about the West Bank? Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. Anyways.
They voted in Hamas, who then killed their fellow Palestinians, never had another election, and used all the billions of dollars of taxpayer funds from the US, UK, and Europe to build terror tunnels and to enrich themselves so they could live the life of luxury in Qatar. Again and again, the reason there is not a Palestinian
that like a term in
state,
Israel? They call it terror tunnels. Is that why things? I mean, like alliteration for propaganda does go pretty hard. So terror tunnels is kind of nasty. That's kind of nasty. Anybody up trying to dig in the terror tunnel?
is because the Palestinian leadership doesn't want one.
Okay, Douglas,
didn't want one in 1947. It preferred war, and it doesn't want one now.
Douglas,
they did want one in 1947. Whatever happened to those 2 million people that were kicked out? They just is that his idea? Why 2 million? Sorry, is that his idea? Why there's so much like Palestinian diaspora? Because they didn't want a state. That's why they left.
By Queen Rania of Jordan in a new piece for, I think it was the Washington Post.
They allowed themselves
in just
to get
over 2
knocked,
months. She said Israel's turned Gaza into a hellscape. At least 8,000 children have died, more than the death tolls of Pearl Harbor, September the 11th.
Bro, he actually doesn't care.
Katrina combined. These are gigantic and horrendous numbers of children being killed. Do you not have any qualms about the number of children being killed? I mean, does it not suggest that Israel?
I want to hear Queen Rania talking about this as much as I want to hear Queen Camilla or Meghan Markle. I mean, it's pathetic. Queen Rania is holding on to her own position in Jordan. The only piece of advice she has for anyone is how to marry a king. Queen Rania herself is just playing a very nasty political game. If she cared at all, and I would pose this to all the states in the region.
I want you guys to just think about this really quick. Just think about what he's saying here. He asked the question, isn't blowing up this many children indicative of them not really being that precise? And he goes, huh, fucking woman. They only really know how to marry a king, dumbass. How about that, fool? Just completely change the topic to go from the thing that was being said to who was saying it. And you can disagree with the person who's saying something, but like, if he doesn't come back around to talk about the thing that actually was, then I would genuinely be blown away for somebody to think that this guy made any good points here.
Region. If Jordan cared at all for the Palestinian people, they would take them in. They would take them in. They don't want them. If the Egyptians wanted them, they'd take them in, but they don't. Do you know why? Because every country that takes in the Palestinians gets terror. It happened in Egypt, it happened in Jordan, it happened in Syria, it happened in Lebanon, it happened in Tunisia, on and on. That's why these people don't really care about their fellow Muslims.
This is crazy to me. Yo. All right, so proof of something. This guy is super Islamophobic. All right? And this is okay. Super duper Islamophobic. Everywhere these people go, they bring terror. And their fellow, what do you mean fellow Muslims? Like, some of the largest conflicts in the entire world in the entire world recently in modern history has been between Muslims. What do you mean fellow Muslims? Like they're besties, like they're friends, like you think they know each other, they go to like each other's like grandpa's weddings all the time. What are you talking about? Oh, their fellow Muslims would want them. Maybe they'd want them. You know what? How about that? Here, one state solution. And Israel is forced to take every single Palestinian and Palestinians have a right to return. Okay? As long as you have 4% Palestinian in you, you have a right to return to Jerusalem. How about that? Doesn't Iraq and Saudi Arabia hate each other? Yeah, but like a lot of Muslim majority countries in the Middle East hate Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia does anything they want with the backing of the United States because they give us oil.
Jews.
All right, Cenk, your response.
Yeah, so you asked if he cared about 8,000 dead babies, and his answer was no. Queen Rania bothers me, so complete non-answer, because he doesn't care. He doesn't think the Palestinians' lives are worth anything. He just called them all terrorists.
Put that
and this is think the Palestinians' lives are worth anything. You just called them all terrorists.
Nice. You can put that
and this is what they always do.
There you go.
So hold on, I let you talk for a long time. So why don't you shut up for a second? So we've got all of these dead babies. We've got all of these dead babies that this monster doesn't care about. He says keep bombing them. A former intelligence officer said in the Israeli press they're using AI in a program called The Gospel, where he said it's basically a mass assassination factory. And we could all see it with our own eyes. And you can do all the propaganda you want. No one believes your nonsense. We see all the dead women. We see all the dead children. Now Israel has killed 20 times the number of civilians that Hamas killed. So would I want Hamas in charge of Israel? Never, never. I don't trust them, and I don't believe that they would be benign. So all of this propaganda about, people don't mind Hamas. No, we mind Hamas. We mind terribly what happened on October 7th.
This guy's eyebrows are going
And I'm now
insane.
showing you different Israelis that have said that it's a problem, and I want peace, Israel and Palestine, and this does not get Israel any peace or security. But when you ask the other side, do you mind tens of thousands of civilians that have been murdered, incinerated alive, body parts picked out of rubble, little babies killed over and over again in what is even the Israeli prime minister is referring to as Amalek, meaning an extermination of the Palestinian people. And I must clarify the difference between a genocide and a Holocaust. A genocide is when you target a specific people and kill a lot of civilians. Srebrenica, where 6,000 people were killed, was considered a genocide. So it doesn't mean you try to murder every single person in that race. That is a Holocaust.
Let me reply.
Wait, one second. Before I go to Douglas, Cenk, one question. You want to get rid of Hamas too, as does Douglas, as do I. If you don't do it the way that Israel is currently doing it, given that they live amongst the population, how else do you do it?
Okay, I'm glad that this question was asked. It's a really good question, actually.
Yeah, there's an excellent way to do it, and there's the right way to do it. So let me explain. So war, this guy talks about, I love war. I go to all the conflict zones. So by watching it and rooting on for more death, I know something about conflict. You know nothing. So here's what reality is. War gets you more war, but peace actually works. So when Israel did a peace deal with Egypt, not only were the Egyptians safe, but the Israelis became safer. That peace deal has held for decade after decade. So how do you do a peace deal in this case? What you do is you do the two-state solution now, and you do it with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And if you then have a Palestinian state, the Palestinian Authority would have the credibility to drive out Hamas from Gaza. That is a realistic plan for both peace, security for Israel and the Palestinians, and driving out Hamas. The idea that you're going to kill for decade after decade. Credibility to drive out Hamas from Gaza. That is a realistic plan for both peace. Israelis became safer. That peace deal has held for decade after decade. So how do you do a peace deal in this case? What you do is you do the two-state solution now, and you do it with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And if you then have a Palestinian state, the Palestinian Authority would have the credibility to drive out Hamas from Gaza. That is a realistic plan for both
two-state solution isn't feasible. Here's the thing. Nothing besides killing each other is like feasible right now. Okay, Netanyahu wants to kill all the Gazans. Hamas wants to blow up all of the Jews in the area. Okay, nothing right now is necessarily feasible besides them continuing to kill each other. If we're going to take that argument, right? So if that's the case, then just like let them keep blowing up each other for the next 100 years and see who will win. Like the people of Gaza who will like come back and continue to commit the people who are radicalized by Israel's bombings and from like Palestinian lineage or like the Muslim world. Is so like Israel will constantly live in a complete state of terror, a boom bust when it comes to terror. Joke that was not supposed to be a joke, just so you know. But they'll be in a boom bust of like terror for the rest of eternity until like the state itself is gone, or I don't know, we just continue with this forever, right? If we're going to take that idea with nothing really being feasible. But if we have like ideas about what we want to do, if there's any possibility of it happening, I would say work with the Palestinian Authority, help like bring them into the room, because in many ways they're left out of the negotiating room a lot, and they're way better for peace than Hamas is, even though they have like many problems. But when it comes to all of this, I'm way less likely to have more problems with the Palestinian Authority as opposed to Israel, since not only does Israel have more power, but they've said more genocidal things. Their leaders have said more genocidal things in the last 2 months than what I've heard from the Palestinian Authority, if I'm going to be honest with you. But like, I don't know, how are we going to dislodge like Al Qaeda from Afghanistan? Well, we tried to blow them up until they stopped existing. It didn't really work. I think giving them love, giving the Palestinians love and like a state, giving them rights and things along these lines, helping to repatriate problems that have happened in the past will help to slowly bring about better solutions in the future. And like, I know a lot of people will say that doesn't sound very palatable to Israelis. Well, I mean, probably not. Normalizing relationships between them is something that's really big. And even bringing the UN in, something that Israel hates now, apparently, bringing the UN in to help with it when it comes to peace deals, as well as helping like bring up Israel's reputation in the area by doing things like giving back the Golan Heights, giving back those farms to Lebanon in Israel's north. Things along those lines would go like such a long way to be able to make things better, but they genuinely don't care. But when it comes to just exterminating Hamas, I'm going to be completely honest with you all. I don't believe that's fact. I don't believe it's possible. It's just not possible. Like Hamas is like an idea, and people who want to commit crimes against Israel are going to exist forever, but are going to exist in a much larger percentage if they're going to continue doing what they've been doing, right? Which is committing more crimes against these people. All you can do, really, if I'm going to be honest with you, is trying to normalize relations and giving less people reasons to be angry. Anybody who ever talks about ending terrorism is lying. It's just really not. It's not really possible. But right now, like the current state of affairs, and even if Israel was able to go through with a lot of their ideas when it comes to just ethnically cleansing Gaza, it's just Israel will never be in a position where it can have peace if it just continues with this. It will never have peace. And so like the idea of making this place safer for Jews or something in the area by blowing up as many Arabs as possible has obviously in the last 70 years not led to peace. If blowing up as many Arabs as possible was going to lead Israel to peace, why has it not worked in the last 70 years? And so maybe I think a new solution is in order to fix this problem.
Security for Israel and the Palestinians and driving out Hamas.
I don't know. But me personally, I think anybody who says they have like a great answer for what exactly to do that just needs to be taken instantly and that'll just fix all the issues, or even has like a 90% chance of fixing all the issues within like 5 years or something, is just 10 years even, is just lying to themselves and everybody else in the room.
You're going to kill 20,000 more civilians, 200,000 more civilians in Gaza, and it's going to drive out Hamas.
Let Douglas
answer that.
Let Douglas respond to that.
First of all, I mean, your other guest, I mean, I don't know what kind of a creature he is. He's a kind of low-grade thug, as far as I can see. He's listened to nothing I've said.
Yeah, I know, because I'm Muslim. That's what
you
call
thing. I'll tell you. No, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. I just think that I think you're just a very low-rent racist.
Racist?
But anyway, let me just get on to it. You say first of all, I don't care about the death of Palestinian children. Yes, I do care. I care very deeply about it. But I also know that the responsibility for their deaths lies on Hamas.
Okay, wait. So here it is. Okay, here it is. So here's the clip that we originally watched, which is him not claiming that he cares, which is him saying that he claims that he cares without ever really caring, actually.
Governed their society for the last 16 years. Tomorrow in the West Bank, Hamas would win.
All right, we'll watch this.
People who are in Pakistan at the moment, who are your fellow Muslims and who happen to be Afghan, and I don't think you care.
Muslims. This is crazy. Can you imagine somebody saying this to black people? Can you imagine? Like, I don't know, man. It's like saying go back to Africa or something. Like listen, blacks in America, they're always so uppity about everything. They're always talking about racism and this and that. Well, listen, your fellow blacks don't even want you back in Africa either. I mean, they sold you anyways. So you should be lucky we're putting up with you because they did. Like, what are you talking about? Can you even imagine somebody saying this with like any other group of people? You people, nobody wants you because you're fundamentally bad. Yeah, bro's going like your kind, your fellow Muslims, your people. I don't know, maybe he thinks of different types of Muslims, like different dog breeds or something. Like they get along with each other as long as you put them in a pen with like enough toys. Typical Brit. Yeah, typical British racism.
About them, do you? 1 million Afghans are currently being forcibly deported from Pakistan to Afghanistan. You don't.
Okay, Cenk, your response.
Yeah.
You get exercised and you rile up what little base you have of malcontents because you're riled up when the Jews do anything.
Okay, so which one is it? Does he have like a little base that nobody cares about, or is he a part of a global network of the Palestinian supermajority that's against all the Jews and all the Israelis?
Obvious.
Okay, Cenk, your response.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, my last name is Uygur. We're named after the Uyghur Turks in China. And have we talked about that on the Young Turks?
Spoken up then.
Yes. Yes, we've talked about it endlessly, but you don't know that, and you don't watch the show.
Shame
You just
nobody
make
watches
things
the
up.
show.
Bro,
So-
he's
Don't
actually a
watch the show.
child.
Well,
Lie. Okay, so lies about Cenk not talking about an issue. Finds out that he's very incorrect because he just said it because he thinks that everybody is like a 4-year-old online who only believes things that people told them. Because he's the only because Jews in Israel, I guess, are the only free thinkers in the world or something, which is super weird, right? They're just normal people like everybody else, right? So he's the only free thinker. Israel and him are the only free thinkers, right? And then after he finds out that he's lied, claims that, well, there's no reason why I should ever know about anything that I'm talking about because nobody likes you and no one watches your show anyways. Okay. Actually talking like a child. Like he actually said that he doesn't have enough clout for him to make correct statements. Okay. All right.
okay, again, you're interrupting me when I was kind enough to let you go on with your mad ramblings. So how nobody watches the show. We have 5 billion views a year. I don't know what piddling outfit you're on or what little Substack or whatever the hell you write on. So
how views work? He said everyone on Earth. For one, there's 8 billion people on Earth. So it's most of the world, actually. But sure. And, repeat viewers are also kind of is he just stupid?
So the reason we're incredibly popular is we fight for all. We fight for shut up. We fight for all innocent civilians. So yes, we've covered all of those conflicts. Yes, I'm against fundamentalist Islam, no question about it. I'm against fundamentalist religions of all kind. In terms of
bro, he's actually like this guy's name. This guy's named Uygur. He's a Muslim extremist. Holy, he's so fucking racist. Honestly, the fact that he writes for any newspaper just proves to you that you should be very careful about what articles you read. What is he, an opinion piece writer? Wait, I gotta find. Who is this guy? Douglas Murray. I actually don't know this guy. I don't keep up with specific writers or whatever. But let's see. Author. Let's see. He wrote a book called The War on the West. All right. Oh, that's why he's talking like that. He's one of those cancel culture conservatives. It's all making sense. It's all making sense. Oh, it's all coming together. I see it. He has a show called Uncanceled History. Uncanceled History is his show. This is how you know you're not mad after you had a debate, is where you start retweeting images that your fans drew of the person who you debated being sweaty and stinky and angry. It's like posting on Wojak. As you see, Mr. Uygur Muslim boy, you couldn't have won because I've already had retweeted you as the ugly Wojak. Okay. Looks racist as hell. A little bit. Oh, he drew him a Harry too? Okay. Oh, I see it. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, this shit is racist as fuck. But that's not surprising. I mean, look at these people, right?
Well, first of all, I just have to add, you quite rightly said it, Piers, that the figures you gave are Hamas figures, and we do have to treat them with more than a grain of salt. As for, again, my counterpart...
Until you find any reliable source to be able to question those numbers, I'm not going to care very much about his opinion about those figures, because like Israel also has very similar figures, like we said earlier.
Deliberate genocide of children and women.
No, genocide of
this is the sort of thing
Gazans. That also includes women and children.
You sort of claim that there are bombs being deliberately dropped on children and old women. Why would Israel want to drop bombs deliberately on children or old women?
To get rid of them, to kill them?
It's just a shame you don't get out and see anything. The Israelis do an incredibly careful campaign before bombings to try to make sure that civilians are warned to leave areas that are about to be attacked. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the region knows that. It's a shame that fact hasn't got to you. As it happens,
this is just simply not true. Then why does the UN disagree with that? The people on the ground. Why did Red Crescent die? Why was those Red Crescent ambulances bombed? Why in the world were those caravans of people leaving northern Gaza going to southern Gaza? Why were they bombed? Did they just not listen to Israel with the very specific bombing paths? Or were they just bombed by Israel, even while listening to them? Which one is it? Do you think the UN and Red Crescent are there like, are just standing on what, like, are Israel soldiers going there and drawing a big cartoony Acme X on the ground, and then like a Israeli plane comes by and drops like a cartoonishly large like baby grand piano that's filled with explosives in it, and then like Red Crescent and UN service workers are just like standing on the X, and this guy's like, well, they had it coming. And what are you talking about? Red Crescent is Muslim, so obviously they're lying. Oh yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that.
Raised, Piers, is a very, very complex one. I don't have the answer. I don't believe anyone does have the answer about the day after. Nobody wants to rule the Gaza. The Israelis used to be in charge of it. They left, as I say, in 2005 to the last Jew. They were all taken out of their houses. Israel doesn't want to rule the Gaza.
The Gaza?
Now, who can rule the Gaza? Hamas clearly cannot, because they set it up as a terrorist statelet. Can some Fatah-like authority be encouraged to take it over? Possibly, possibly. I spoke to one Palestinian analyst earlier today who said that actually, just as I said earlier, that an election in the West Bank today would elect Hamas. Perhaps an election tomorrow, if it was to happen, and I'm not sure if that's going to be a good idea, might even actually elect not Hamas Palestinians to power. But it's a heck of a risk. The reality is that the only solution to Gaza that anyone can see, if I can imagine, is that it has to be.
Okay. Let's put 1 in chat if you think that his answer is going to be what's classified by the UN as ethnic cleansing, and 2 in chat if you think that he's going to say something actually pretty intellectual and interesting. What do you think? 1 for he's going to say something that's described as ethnic cleansing. 2 is something that's intellectual. What do you think? Well, I see a whole lot of ones. Let's see.
Gaza is a very complex question. It used to be ruled by Egypt, used to be run by Egypt. Can Egypt have a role? In my view, it has to have a role. Can Jordan be involved? In my view, yes, it has to have a role. Can the Gulf states, including those who've been pumping money to Hamas, have some kind of role? Yes, I would hope so. It cannot be Israel's task alone to deal with the question of the Gaza. It has to involve multiple players in the region, but there's one kicker to that, which is that none of the Arabs in this region that I'm sitting in care a jot about the Palestinians. They really do not. If they did, for all of their talk, they would have done something. They would not have decided to keep the Palestinians out, as they have in country after country. Queen Rania can invite the Gazans into Jordan. She can invite the West Bank Palestinians into Jordan. She doesn't. Egypt could open its border with Gaza. It doesn't. The Egyptian border with Gaza is firmer and more closely locked than the Israeli ones. There are Gazan workers who, until the atrocities of October the 7th, every day were going through the Eretz crossings and others to work in Israel and to earn a decent living. Were there workers going in daily into Egypt? No, because the Egyptians don't want Palestinians in their country. So the only solution is a regional one. But I'm afraid in this region, there are very few people who care about
And it seems like Israel's one of... Okay, so once again, he said earlier that they could just take Gazans, that there could just be more Gazan diaspora. Ethnic cleansing, that's what that is by definition. Thank you, Marjorie.
This meme is very real.
I don't know. I think it should be Israel's fault. Like I think it's the US's fault and the US's responsibility to deal with problems in like Central and South America. The reason being is because we caused a lot of their problems. And so it's our responsibility to help take care of those people because we destroyed a lot of their homes. With this being said, Israel's responsibility is to take care of the Gazans and Palestinians in general because of the Nakba that happened in 1948, because of the continued decades of subjugation and bombings and the power imbalance between those two states as well. I don't really care about any other states here because Israel's the ones that's doing the bomb. Last time I checked, Egypt is not bombing Gaza. I could be wrong. And anybody please correct me if I'm wrong, but Egypt is not bombing Gaza right now, as far as I know. But please correct me if I'm wrong. Egypt is not bombing Gaza. It's not really happening.
Douglas, you had the first word. Cenk, I'll give you the last one. I want to preface it by saying that it's been reported today, this has come from Hamas's statements apparently, picked up by newspapers in America, that there was a new hostage deal offered, which was that Hamas were asked, will you release the 40 women and children you still have captive in return for a week-long ceasefire? And they apparently have rejected that. So I think that when we talk about behaviour on both sides, the mere fact that there are still 40 women and children in the clutches of Hamas, and God knows what they're doing to those poor women, that should be noted too. there are still innocent people being held in the most appalling conditions by Hamas, and that is also motivating Israel's response.
Right.
But I'll give you the last word, Cenk.
Yeah. So I wish to God that they would release those women and children. I think it's immoral to keep them. It's wrong in every way. But Israel kills more than 40 women and children every single day, all completely innocent.
You know the craziest thing about this is that I don't really like this argument from like a human standpoint from Cenk, but it's a relatively decent just like debate argument. But this guy can't shake his head because he literally made this exact same argument like seconds ago when it came to killing 8,000 children. We're talking about 40, and we're talking about 40, and he's like, yeah, but more than 40 have died. It's a whataboutism. We're talking about 8,000, and he's like, who cares? The other Muslims don't. Muslims don't even care about Muslim lives. Why should I? And now he's shaking his head.
Outlandish numbers of 7,000 Hamas fighters killed. That means their kill ratio of civilians to fighters is still worse than Hamas's. And they have now killed 20 times the number of civilians that Hamas has killed. So when Douglas talks about driving them into Egypt or Jordan, that's just ethnic cleansing. They live in Gaza. So if you push them out and they say, well, you're all Arabs anyway, why don't you just go live somewhere else in the region? That's the definition of ethnic cleansing. That is outrageous. And he says it with blithely, with no concern, because Palestinian lives don't matter. And you ask them, hey, how many Palestinians can you possibly kill? And he never answered the question. So the reality is you cannot kill your way out of this conflict. The more that they kill, the more, what do you think that the Palestinians are going to feel? What would you feel if your family was butchered, if their heads were crushed by a bomb that was dropped on a building, if they were lit on fire by the bombs that were dropped? What would you do? You'd fight back the rest of your life. And then they are permanently occupied. And now Netanyahu says he was proud that he did prevented the Palestinian state.
Here's the thing. For one, this like Murray guy, he's right that like when those crimes were committed against Israel, that Israelis would feel justified in killing as many people as they want. The only problem is Cenk has never in this entire argument said that blowing up as many Israelis as possible is perfectly fine, when this guy specifically said that it's fine because it's somebody else's fault. So they can keep blowing it up because every bomb that they drop on a child is somebody else's fault.
That he will continue to prevent a Palestinian state. He is not a partner for peace, or he profits from war. His whole career is about perpetuating war, not just to murder Palestinians, but it keeps Israel unsafe for eternity. So the whole point of Israel is to be a safe haven for oppressed Jews throughout the world. It cannot be a safe haven as long as you're imprisoning 5 million Palestinians and saying, we are never, ever going to let you go. And if you ever dare oppose us, we will kill your women and children. It's disgusting.
They're not in prison.
It's not what Israel was meant to do.
Also, one thing that hasn't been talked about yet, I was hoping that Cenk was going to bring this up. Unfortunately, it was not brought up. But one thing that's really important here is that you're going to see something super interesting about news outlets that talk about this. People who are taken from their homes in Israel and brought into Gaza and held captive, those people are hostages, but people who are just scooped up off the street in the West Bank, captured, beaten, tortured, humiliated, and kept in cages for without like any legal recourse, without any charges, and just held forever, indefinitely, who are Palestinians inside of Israel. Those people are they're not even considered prisoners, and sometimes they're called prisoners, sometimes they're not even called prisoners. People just don't refer to them at all because they don't even care, right? People will post pictures of like children, babies in literally babies in literal dog cages, and say that this is what the Palestinians are doing to Israelis, when it's actually Gazan and Palestinian children. Those are the ones that are there in those cages. But it's just, people should talk about it. I just think people should talk about that more. It is like super important. No, they're referred to as terrorists. Oh yeah, I think this guy would probably say, do you think that this guy even likes the hostage deals? What do you guys think? That he'd be like, there should be no hostage deals because everybody that's released into Gaza is just like an extra terrorist or anything? I don't know. Maybe he believes that they should just like blow up the hostages as they're coming out. Who knows? For throwing rocks at tanks, apparently. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You don't want to put that American money to waste.
urge you again, Cenk, leave your bedroom sometime and come to this region and see it for
Bro said
yourself.
Hey, I
come
thought
to
I
the
was supposed to get the last word.
streets.
In the West
It's
Bank
talking
are
about
not.
bedrooms.
The
Hey, do you
Palestinians
care
in
about the
West Bank
babies?
are
You
not
care
in
about the
a
women?
prison.
Douglas, why don't you admit you
I
don't
don't know-
care
I
about
don't-
dead Palestinian babies, dead Palestinian
don't
women,
know
because you
if
don't
you
mind
listen.
it? Or Israel, Israel,
I
Israel. You say
think
right or
you
wrong, no matter
don't
how many
mind
people they have
about
murdered,
anything.
no matter how many kids
I
they have
think you
crushed
don't
to
mind
death,
about
you
anything
don't
other than
care
shouting.
because you don't care about human
All I can
beings.
say is
All you
because
want is
you
some
don't
sort of
care about
warmongering
anything other than
Israeli
shouting.
Anyways,
state,
the
US
yap,
state, etc.
I think the yap session is basically over. I think Cenk did like a pretty reasonable job here. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, this Murray guy is genuinely insane. I think anybody who like genuinely looks at this is going to be able to tell that this guy is like, this guy is cooking up genocide in his pockets. But I don't know. A lot of people don't care. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.